do we really know anyone that's in a class other than ours? And that's important. That's important. How many know therefore the grace of God go? Amen? By a show of hands, how many here had anything to do with where you were born or who you were born to? I better not see a hand go up. Right? We often forget. Neither did they. Whoever they are. That infamous they. Them. Those people. No one had anything to do with where you were born or who you were born to. We all get dealt a hand. We play it out the best way we know how. Isn't that right? Some with generations of dysfunction, breeding dysfunction. But making it the best way they can. And the last question, how has the opioid epidemic affected you? Anybody just want to share real quick? Throw something out? You had your hand up?
It's changed the direction of my career.
Changed the direction of your career. It's pretty impactful, to say the least, the current opioid epidemic that we are facing in this country. How many know heroin, which is the primary opioid of choice that's getting folks in trouble, has been around for a long time? It never went away. It never went away. How many can appreciate that it wasn't until it left the containment area that it became a real problem?
Talk about it.
Does anybody understand what I just said? Not until it left the containment area did it become a real problem. As long as it was in the containment area, everything all right. Out of sight, out of mind. Don't want to know. Don't want to know. But as soon as it left the containment area, oh boy, we got a problem. I felt like I had to work extra hard. Not so much of it. Thank you. So I really hope everybody is appreciating what I'm saying. The truth of that. Heroin has always been around. We've always had a heroin epidemic. It was only confined to the containment area. As soon as it came out of the containment area, whoa, Houston, there's a problem. There's a problem. And there really is a real problem. But it's not like there wasn't always a problem. So the socioeconomic classes, the wealthy class, the middle class, the poverty class. Let me just stop right there and just mention to you that this is a co-occurring disorder conference, obviously, by the name, and you're going to have some wonderful speakers. They're going to tell you everything you ever want to know about addiction, and all sorts of, real experts are coming in front of you today. So I'm just going to focus a lot on poverty, because it's something that it's in our midst, it's all around, it's one of the biggest social ills of our society today, but we don't get a lot of discussion on it. There's not a lot of information about it. But it does absolutely, positively, very seriously affect addiction, and it facilitates addiction. And since more than half of you raised your hand that you indeed have clients that are in poverty, how important is it that you really appreciate what that looks like and what that does and how it factors in? So as we mentioned before, a new class has officially emerged as of the 2005 census: severe or extreme poverty, over 16 million Americans. And I guess I could point that over here as well, since we got two screens going on here, which I'm not used to, but that's okay. So severe poverty, those are the numbers. 9,903 for a family of 4. 5,080 for an individual. Actually half the federal poverty guideline of the United States. half in severe poverty. Ladies and gentlemen, there are now over 20 million Americans in that status, and growing, especially since '09 and the so-called Great Recession that we're just now coming out of. Well over 20 million, the fastest growing group. And so poverty is ever more relevant in our lives and people's lives that we know and interact with daily. But there is two types of poverty, and it's really important to appreciate that. Most of the statistics and things that I'll throw out today that's on the slides are referencing generational poverty, where a family's been in poverty for at least 3-4 generations. But there is also situational poverty, and that's what's increasing that number of severe poverty, is situational poverty. People being 1 or 2 paychecks away. 1 or 2 paychecks away. I said that one day in a training, the lady yelled out, "Man, that's me." Life is different here. When you're in poverty, life is different. If you didn't grow up in poverty, you're probably unaware of the hidden rules that govern many aspects of life for the poor. People in poverty are often in survival mode. Guys, it's really important to appreciate that. It's all about surviving. That's the #1 driving force. I've got to eat today. I've got to survive today. If I do something to offend you, don't take it personal because I'm surviving today. It's all about today for me. Where the future holds little promise and support systems taken for granted in middle and wealth are non-existent. Only a deeper understanding of their challenges and strengths will help you partner with them to create opportunities. The extent to which an individual does without resources, things we take for granted. One of the things that we need to appreciate in this country, most of all the systems in this country, when I say systems, the banking system, financial system, educational system, healthcare system, all of the systems are built on middle-class principles. They're all built on middle-class principles. If you're in generational poverty, often you feel like a fish out of water. It's very difficult to navigate those systems that we take for granted. We go in and out of them no problem. We go in and out of those systems without an issue at all, not a care in the world. But for a person in generational poverty, not so much. Not so much. It's a little different. Sometimes very different, those systems. So you got tyranny of the moment, survival mode. The need to act overwhelms any willingness people have to learn. And that's a tough one, because we all know in our country today, education is the great, and can be, I should say, the great equalizer. It really can, and it often is. But not so much for a person in generational poverty when they look at it as an abstract idea. When they see education as this abstract idea. In other words, I know it's kind of important, but for you, not for me. You go ahead, you get yours. I don't know anybody that went to college in my family, and we're okay. We're doing all right. Or as they say, we all right. We all right. It's important to appreciate that, because that's a big one. That's a big one. Everybody's here getting credits, what you call them, CUs, and then the NASA credits, and all these credits, all these, we get all these letters behind our name. When I went and got that Certified Recovery Specialist training, I said, wow, it's like a master's level course here. OWDS, anybody ever taken the OWDS training? Offender Workforce Development Specialist training? That literally is a master's level training. It's intense. The work you have to do in between the weeks of training is unbelievable. Absolutely intense. So, but I did all that because I wanted the degrees, I wanted the certifications. I wanted to show that I understand this stuff and can do those things like all of us. And when you're in generational poverty, you just don't, that connection isn't made for you. Education is seen as an abstract idea. So that becomes difficult then, to get that great equalizer going for you. And that's often why people end up staying stuck, because they never get that. The focus is, I've got to eat today. In poverty, as Dr. Payne points out, there are two major factors. There are hidden rules and there are driving forces. I would venture to say, as I mentioned earlier, pretty much everybody in here obviously is of the middle class. And I can tell you something else about yourself that you may not know. You've all got work ethic. Okay? On that note, not only do you have work ethic, you're workaholics. Every last one of you is a workaholic. By a show of hands, let me prove it to you. How many here know what a 3-week vacation looks like? Couple. That's amazing. I've asked that question in many, many trainings with not a hand going up. I had one guy put his hand up and he was retired. And we don't know what a 3-week vacation looks like, but how many know in Europe that's very common? 3, 4, 5, even 6 weeks. In some countries, 5 weeks is mandatory. Go figure, huh? Wouldn't that be nice? Wow. What would our inbox look like after that one? My goodness. Can you just imagine coming back after 4 weeks? You shut down the system. Oh boy. But we are workaholics. We are workaholics. But you know, it begs the question, where do we get our work ethic from? Where do we get our work ethic from? I'll propose to you that we had a mom and or a dad get up, get dressed, go to work every morning. This stuff is caught, not taught. The hidden rules are caught, not taught. We had a mom and or a dad get up, get dressed, go to work every morning. That's where we got our work ethic from. But what about that kid whose mom goes to a mailbox, get a check, and then we eat good for the next 2 weeks, and then we're back to ketchup and mayonnaise sandwiches? Where does that kid get work ethic from? But Eric, we'll look at that kid and say, what's wrong with you? Why are you late? What's your problem? What, you don't have an alarm clock? What is it? Do we do that? Why are you late? What's your problem? What's going on here? Don't you know how to be on time? We'll make an assumption, won't we? That they have what we have. Why shouldn't they? That assumption would be erroneous. They in fact don't have what we have. We make those assumptions about a lot of things, ladies and gentlemen. That's why that training is so important. Because it's so easy to make those assumptions. It's so easy to think that everybody's got what you got, and they don't. We know where we got our work ethic from. We had a mom and or a dad get up, get dressed, go to work. No one had to teach us that. It was caught, not taught. But for a lot of people, they never caught that. They didn't have it to catch. But we'll look at them and say, what's wrong with you? What's your problem? See what time it is? I've heard a parole agent ask a kid, don't you have an alarm clock? You know, we can easily take that stuff for granted. We can easily take that stuff for granted. And there's so many hidden rules. You know, in that 6-hour training, we really break that down, the rules of the wealthy, the middle, and poverty, and how different they are. In fact, we take a wealthy class quiz that I've never had more than 2 people get more than 2 answers right, 13-question quiz. And it just illustrates the point. Just as we in the middle don't know what the wealthy take for granted, we need to appreciate that those in poverty don't know what the middle take for granted. Technically, that's true, but that's also very scary. If enough people do it, it's normal. Guys, I venture to say that's a real underlying factor behind a lot of our issues today. That when enough people do it, it becomes normal. And normal equates to okay. So if enough people do it, it's okay. Who are you to tell me it's not? We even have a new term in our English lexicon called the new norm. It's about 5, 6 years old. The new norm. Right? If enough people do it, it's normal. We need to help teach a new norm. When we see the dysfunctionality of that person's norm, like that young girl that was trying desperately to get your attention, didn't know how you could help, but knew you maybe could help some kind of way. Please help, because this ain't right. I know enough to know that something about this ain't right. Every kid knows that. Enough to know that something about this here is not right. But who do they have to reach out to? Who can they have confidence in? Who can they trust? Who can they trust? Can they trust you? Do you seem like you care? Or is it just another number? Guys, we're in the human services. We deal with human beings, not widgets. Boy, if we don't care, we're in trouble. If we don't care, we are all in trouble. And you know, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Mm-hmm. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. If you don't care, there's a real problem. You may be in the wrong profession. Just saying. High incidence of delinquent behavior. High incidence all around you. Delinquency. It's the norm. Excessive presence of criminal behavior. Absolutely the norm. Absolutely the norm. Criminal behavior. Speaking of criminal behavior, I read a study years ago. They talked about how many states determine how many prison beds to build. I don't know if anyone else here read that same study. Anybody heard of that? That it's by 4th grade reading level? I didn't stutter. 4th grade reading level. They can determine, sociologists can accurately predict how many prison beds to build in a state by 4th grade reading level. If intervention isn't brought to bear, and it doesn't get fixed by the 6th grade, the young person drops out mentally. They really don't want to be in that classroom. They really want to just like disappear into the wall. They don't want to be called on because they can't read good. Can't read well. I use that bad grammar just to kind of throw that out there. Bad grammar has its place. Sometimes. They can't read good. And if by intervention isn't brought to bear by the 9th and 10th grade and they're emancipated, now they drop out. Well, in our urban pockets of poverty, and not just the urban pockets of poverty, but primarily our urban pockets of poverty all over the United States, when they drop out and they're not in the school building, where are they? On the streets, doing the wrong thing, on their way to a jail cell. On their way to a jail cell. And guys, that's an easy fix. Improving reading level, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade is a real easy fix. All we need is the will to do so. That's all we need is the will to do so. Is where you'll find this situation very prevalent in our urban pockets of poverty. The relationship between race, poverty, and geography is particularly strong in the U.S. Poverty is increasingly becoming concentrated in communities of color, most notably among communities of African Americans, and with this concentration comes a host of social and public health problems. Stuff we're all talking about today. Massey and colleagues, for example, write the geographic concentration of poverty is alarming. The intense clustering of poor people in neighborhoods leads to a concentration of other deleterious social and economic circumstances associated with poverty. It's very real. It's happening all around us. But as long as it stays in the containment area, it's out of sight, out of mind. But boy, shouldn't we be caring? So backing into the equation. Backing into the equation. How many know X never marks the spot? X never marks the spot. How many knows, how many have seen and have realized you did this evaluation, you did this assessment, they lied to you, now you're working on the lie? How does that work? What is that? I mean, come on. What is that about? We wonder why recidivism rates are so high when we're working on the lie. And often we know when they're lying. You know, this thing about taking the client's word, you know, no, I challenge them. You ought to come into one of my evaluations. But you know what? We get it done. We get it done. Work happens. I learned a long time ago, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. If all it is your idea, don't bother. There are, of course, community causes, and then there are individual causes. We always see the individual. Sometimes we see community, or what we think is community, but we often miss the larger societal causes. It's really important to appreciate all three. Addiction is facilitated by the risk factors associated with poverty. That is, of course, a lot of other things, as we all know, that are tied to addiction. But a big part of people that are in poverty is because of the multiple risk factors. And then recovery, helping the addict understand the norms of poverty and how to develop new norms, is key to reducing recidivism. Key to reducing recidivism. So, in essence, we want to help them understand. We want to help them realize, to climb out of that trap that often they were born into and didn't realize that's what it was, because it was normal. Because it was normal. Have a great day. It's been wonderful. Thank you.